So a lot of people have been asking me for my support settings, and here's first, as always, a list of the people who helped me get started and helped me to buy a 3D printer. Now here's something to look at while I babble before I get to the settings. So a lot of people have been asking for these settings, and I thought, what's the big deal? And then when I actually started to make the video, I realized, man, my settings are actually pretty crazy. And I'm sure if you look at most people who've had their photons or whatever resin printers for a long time, they'd look at my settings and tell you I was an idiot. But then if you look at my prints, hopefully you can see something a little differently. So we really should go over these. So here is my raft setting, and the raft is like Fight Club. You don't talk about raft because you see raft shape, none. There is no raft. So these settings, meaningless. So we're going to move right on, and we're going to get to the bottom settings. Now, when we talk to the bottom settings, about the bottom settings, excuse me, I don't really alter these. The only thing that I might change here is at the very, very bottom of the screen, you see it says contact point 3. I do, on rare occasions, this has how many contact points. If you drop a support from one part of the model and it hits another part of the model, it supports in 3 places right now, 3 little contact points, 3 little legs, if you will, holding up that support. So on those very, very rare instances where I can't find a way to drop a support into a really tight spot and I have to let a support start and end on the model, which you guys know I hate, I do change this contact point number down to 1 usually, so I have minimal damage on my model. I mean, the reason I don't let support touch my model is I don't want the damage. So if I'm going to have that damage, I will make the contact point to 1 and minimize the damage to my model. But again, that's really, really very, very, very rare because I truly hate doing that. So for the bottom, you'll see that if you look at your standard settings and mine, they're basically the same. I don't really change anything there. So it just fiddle with the contact now and then. So now we're going to moving up the model to the middle. I don't touch anything here at all. It's a cylinder, which is the ball shape you see me dragging around. There's no reason for me to ever change anything in the middle, and I never have from the stock settings. So from there, since middle's gone, let's go up to the top. Now the top, this is the important one, obviously. So my contact diameter, you see 0.12, which is minuscule. It's super tiny. Probably most people never use anything that small, and probably in other videos you won't see anyone using anything that small. I mean, maybe after they watch my videos, maybe they will. But contact depth also 0.12. Again, very, very little penetration past the surface of your model. And I do that again. As you guys know, I'm always trying to minimize damage to my model so that to the naked eye, you won't even know a support was there. And even though these can go down to 0.02, then it's so small, I think it's negligible, doesn't make sense. So one thing I will do when I'm looking at some models, there are some times when I go to place a light support and I do feel this is a little too thin, both diameter and depth. So sometimes I will bump the diameter up by hitting the arrow on the right there. That takes it to 0.22, and I will bump up that depth if I feel I need to get a little better hold of the model, and that also goes to 0.22. So, but normally I keep it on this, which I call my super light, as people who watch my other videos know. And even when I bump it up, it's still probably lighter than what most people use for their light supports anyway. It's definitely lighter than the stock settings. If you look at your stock settings, you'll see it's a higher diameter than 0.22 and a higher depth and a deeper depth than 0.22. I don't mess with usually the diameters. I do mess with the connection length. Since my supports are so thin and light, I actually want the middle part, the ball part, to go up as close to the model as possible, and so I have as little of the really thin material out there where it can fail, because if anything's going to fail, that's going to fail. So I want that connection length set down to 1.5 millimeters. If it looks weird or something's going wrong, you can change that to make it bigger, closer to the stock setting. Okay, now we're going to move off from these light settings onto the medium settings. Before I do that, because I'm actually boring myself right now. Hopefully you guys are learning something, but I still know it's boring. So let's look at a little video here. Whenever I see this, I think, Father, have I missed it? Have I missed the battle? And the father says, Son, you've missed the war. And I hate to drag out an old quote from the movie Gladiator, but for all you younger people, if you have not seen Gladiator, go watch that movie. Okay, amazing movie. Lots of great fighting and all kinds of stuff. Really, really cool stuff. Anyway, I apologize for that, but I had to digress. I was getting too bored. So let's go back into the support settings, and we're going to medium now. So when we get to medium, I'm not going to spend much time on raft because, as we already know, if you can remember from 2 minutes ago, there is no raft. Okay, no raft. So don't even look at it. I don't even want you to point at it. Okay. Now we go to the bottom. The bottom is the same thing as on light. I only ever edit the contact points. Sometimes I go to 1, but on heavies usually aren't in that situation anyway. So let's move on quickly to the middle. I do not touch anything here. These are the stock settings, so we don't have to spend any time here either. This is good. We're moving quickly. Now, we're going to talk about the top, though, and again, the top is important to look at. You'll see my contact diameter is 0.2, and my contact depth is 0.3. So you can see when I bump up a light support, which I was talking about before, it actually has a bigger contact diameter than my mediums. And the contact depth, I do keep a little deeper here on the medium because the idea of a medium is you want more support out of it. So these also I usually place, when you watch my videos, I try to place even the mediums where you won't see them. So I can go a little deeper, create a little more damage to my model, and it's fine. Now, here's something I left out of my video on the photon review. I left out my most spectacular fail ever. I somehow missed, I'd forgotten about this. So I was trying to print a door, a portcullis, which you see next to it. Somehow my USB failed, and it printed this block of crap, and it used up all the resin in my vat. I came into the room, and this lump of crap was just whacking into my FEP. It was horrifying. Okay, let's move on to the heavy supports. I'm going to skip raft, bottom, and middle because they're all stock settings, so obviously you don't need to know about them. But let's talk about this again. The contact diameter on my heavies is only 0.3. Look at yours. It's 1.0. Yours is 3 times bigger, more than 3 times bigger than my contact diameter. And your contact depth should be at 0.6, which is obviously double the contact diameter, the contact depth that I have. So why I do this is, even on my heavies, I still want to minimize damage wherever I can, and these heavies work for me. Most people will tell you any support should have at least a contact depth of 0.4, and here my heavies don't even have a 0.4, and yet look at my models, they don't fail. So look at this. So you can go bigger if you want to here, but look at this model. Okay, I've got a mix of my heavies, my mediums, and my lights. Do you think this model is going to fail? And I probably use, if you auto supported this with whatever your settings you were, you'd probably have about 8 supports on it. Instead, I have about 30. So I over support with a lot lighter supports. And I can tell you this, I don't have a picture of it because it just came off the printer and I have to cure it. This model came out pristine, gorgeous, beautiful. These supports worked amazing. So hopefully you'll get these same results too. Thanks for watching. Please like, please subscribe. Thanks again.